Hey, welcome to Healing Herbalism by Create Conscious Community. My name is Sharice Lucina and I am the founder of Create Conscious Community. We are bringing to you this project called Healing Herbalism, and we have collaborated with the wonderful Rebecca Lazerou and the amazing Mobile Apothecary to bring you an event where we get to learn about the spiritual aspect of our connection with plants and the earth. We get to learn about identifying 3 types of plants that can be found particularly in spring and are very helpful to the immune system and heart, as well as foraging them and how to turn them into medicines. Rebecca Lazarou will be focusing on the medicinal aspects of plants and how they interact inside our bodies. And Mobile Apothecary will be focusing on the identifying, foraging, and turning them into medicines. So stick around. Because the whole point of this project is so that we can learn about mindful permaculture and empower our members to become renegade urban growers, aka RUG. So, without further ado, I introduce Rebecca Lazarou, who will be sharing with us some amazing wisdoms. Feel free to take notes and refer back whenever you want. And let us know your progress as well. We'd love to see what else you get up to. Foraging and making medicines and collaborating with the beautiful earth that we live in. Okay, enjoy.
Okay, so firstly, we're going to talk about violet for blood pressure. Now, violet actually has a really fascinating pharmacology. It works in the same way as verapamil, which is a pharmaceutical used for blood pressure. And basically, the way it works is when calcium ions, an ion is a charged molecule, right? So there's calcium ions which carry an electrical charge. And when they basically enter the tissue of the heart or the arteries, it causes it to contract. And the contraction causes an increase in blood pressure. Now, what violet does is it blocks the calcium from entering the heart and arteries, causing the muscles to relax and therefore lowering blood pressure. Another interesting mechanism of action is our body naturally makes nitric oxide, also known as laughing gas. And what this does is it causes vasodilation. Now, that is when the arteries widen, and when they widen, it causes the blood pressure to lower again. And violet causes nitric oxide to be released in the endothelial cells. Now, the endothelial cells are the cells which line our arteries and our veins. So when they release the nitric oxide, again, it causes vasodilation, causing the blood pressure to go down. So it's a super interesting mechanism of action. Another thing that violet has been shown to be helpful for is lowering cholesterol levels. Now, basically, what happens is you will eat something with cholesterol in, and then enzymes, which are basically mini factories. Enzymes are the things that we need to have for chemical reactions to happen in our body. They make things up and they break things down. And what enzymes do is they'll break down the food and extract the cholesterol, and then you'll have cholesterol in your body, which can do all sorts, like block up your arteries, and too much of it, or too much of low density cholesterol is not good for you. Now, what violet has been shown to do is block the enzymes which make the cholesterol. So the cholesterol can't be extracted from the food and it leaves the body, therefore lowering cholesterol levels. So yeah, again, really interesting pharmacology for violet. Also a beautiful flower. Another thing, the other plant that I want to talk about is cleavers. Um, you'll see this plant about, it's really sticky. I used to play with it as a kid, but it's really got strong medicinal action. And I drink it every day actually, along with nettle and calendula and red clover. Now, what cleavers do, what I'll explain a bit about the lymphatic system first. So our lymphatic system is a system in our body which acts like the sewers of our body. It um, basically is fluid which goes around our lymph nodes, which are placed on different parts around our body, and it carries white blood cells around. Now, white blood cells are the cells in our immune system which fight off disease and protect us basically. And what they also do is they scavenge for things like toxins and, dead bits of bacteria and all sorts. And the lymphatic system carries them, makes them, carries them around the body also, and it helps drain fluids from our body. It's super important, and it's not something that's really mentioned much in pharmaceutical medicine. Um, and basically, cleavers is fantastic for the lymphatic system, because what it does, what a study has shown, is that it increased lymphocytes by 4 to 5 times. Now, let me explain what lymphocytes are. Lymphocytes are a class of white blood cells. We've got many different types of white blood cells in a similar way to, the army. There's different fractions of the army, and we need different types of white blood cells to do different um, actions to get rid of diseases, right? So we've got two types of main lymphocytes. We've got B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. Now, what T lymphocytes do is they will actually kill the bacteria. They'll shoot chemicals at it. They will do all sorts to actually destroy it. B lymphocytes release antibodies, which are basically little flags, which go around on the bacteria, the viruses, whatever, pin the flag on it, so that the T cell knows to then go and do the dirty work and get rid of the bacteria or virus. So cleavers increases by 4 to 5 times the amount of lymphocytes that we have in our immune system. And for me, looking after my lymphatic system has been transformational in many ways, because I'm a really sneezy person, got like a lot of fluid. You probably didn't need to know that, but like I sneeze a lot and I get congested and all sorts of things. And taking antihistamines every day is not the one. It makes you drowsy, you can't do anything, effects on your liver, etc. But I've made this tea of cleavers and nettle, red clover, and calendula, and I drink it every day, and all of my symptoms have gone. So herbal medicines might take a bit of time to kick in, a week or two, sometimes longer, but it's aiding the body in healing itself and nurturing your body back into balance, so that you can live a healthier, more balanced life with none of the side effects. And yeah, the cleavers has been shown as well to increase the scavenging activities of white blood cells. So not only do they kill bacteria and viruses, but they clean you up. They'll bind to things that your body doesn't need, like toxins, and take it to your lymph nodes to be disposed of. So yeah, cleavers is just wonderful. And now we're going to get on to nettle, which is a wonderful plant. It's super absorbent. So it absorbs loads of minerals from the ground. So it's really nutritive and good for you overall. And minerals are important because minerals are what your nervous system uses to communicate. Your nervous system is responsible for your thoughts, emotions, movements, all these sorts of things. And minerals are just really important for so many different bodily functions. Now, interestingly, nettle is really good for hay fever hay fever season, because basically hay fever is in part largely caused by too much histamine, which causes an inflammatory reaction. We need our white blood cells, but sometimes they go a bit too crazy and there's too many of them, and we react disproportionately to harmful things in the environment. And histamine is a key messenger that stimulates these white blood cells to increase. Now, what nettle does is it blocks the receptor to which histamine binds. So even if you get an influx of histamine, if the histamine can't bind to the receptor, it has no action, it can't enter, and nettle blocks the histamine. So it is a natural antihistamine. And it also, the immune system is super sophisticated. It has so many different chemical messengers that send different messages to stimulate different white blood cells or calm different things down, etc. And basically, nettle, it blocks the enzymes which make some of these pro-inflammatory molecules. So basically it cuts the messages off at the source, so that not an excess amount of white blood cells are stimulating, so it helps with the inflammation. Another thing that nettle is really helpful for in herbalism is known as being a diuretic, something that makes you wee loads basically, which is great for detoxifying and getting things out of your system. Now, all the fluid in our body is filtered through the kidneys in a process called glomerular filtration. And basically, nettle has been shown to block a receptor called adenosine 1 on the part of the kidneys which is responsible for glomerular filtration. Now, what happens when you block that receptor is vasodilation happens. So the tubules open up, which allows more water and more toxins, all sorts of things to filter through, and more can be filtered and excreted from the body basically. So nettle basically increases the size of the tubules in the kidneys, allowing more things to be filtered through to allow them to be cleared from the body. So yes, it's a brilliant herb, and again, I take that with cleavers and red clover and calendula every day, and ashwagandha, but that's a different plant. So that's me.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
I'm just gonna show you guys some of the little herbs you were talking about. Which one is this one, Rebecca?
That's nettle.
Very well identified. Thank you very much. I had to use gloves because it is prickly and I'm not trained yet. They're a little sad, but what are these?
Violet.
Wow, you're so good at these things. And these
cleavers, nice and sticky.
Very sticky. Even I think if I no, they didn't really stick. Like this. Another word for them, sticky willies. I feel like plants just have a ridiculous name and we should all embrace them. Thank you so much for that.
That was my pleasure.
Let's have a little chat ski. So before, if you guys have any questions, do let us know in the chat. We'll be taking them. I'm just gonna ask you a bit about your practice and like what got you into researching plants and finding out the health benefits and actually to the scientific level, to the pharmaceutical level.
Cool. So should I tell a bit about my journey? My journey was a really odd one actually. When I was 16, I had a dream about a name that I couldn't shake. Got to the following evening and this name Prince Xavier kept ringing in my head. So I went to the PC and I googled it, and it came up with this guy in India who was a scientist, and he'd set up camps that merged biotechnology and science with herbal medicines, and he'd helped thousands of people. And flood of light, I knew this is exactly what I'm going to do with my life, which is why I then went on to study human biology, because it's really important, I think, I love herbal medicines to bits, but I want a deepen understanding of it, and also be able to communicate it in a way that people will listen. We need science for that. Herbalists are amazing. It's not to discredit any of that, but science is the new religion.
It's true. I guess like hard to argue. We've actually got a question. So could you share the recipe for your tea?
Yes, absolutely. I'm actually going to be selling this soon, but for you guys to make at home on your own. Equal parts red clover, nettle, calendula, and cleavers. Just make up a jar, equal parts. And what I do is I put a tablespoon or two in a French press every day, and I just drink it throughout the day. It's like a couple cups. What I will say is that red clover is estrogenic, meaning it stimulates estrogen in the body. It's really good for clearing your skin and stuff, but if you've got something like endometriosis, which is affected by estrogen, then take the red clover out. And
then the next question, if you already have low blood pressure, is it best to steer clear of violet?
Yeah, I personally would. What I'd also be mindful of as well is if you are taking medicines which lower blood pressure already, you have to be really careful with mixing them too. There's certain rules with safety in herbal medicines, because people always assume, oh, it's natural, it's safe, but they're pharmacologically active. So if you're taking a medicine which has the same effect or a counteracting effect, so for example, you're taking another pill which lowers blood pressure with a herb that lowers blood pressure, you shouldn't do that. If you're taking a pill that increases blood pressure with a herb that lowers blood pressure, you should avoid that. There is a link which I can send to you guys after, where you can check your pharmaceuticals to see if they interact. But if you are wanted to sort of, wean yourself off pharmaceuticals, whatever, you need to talk to a herbalist, because I'll be honest, GPs aren't really trained on this stuff, and you want to make sure that you can do it safely,
Yeah, lucky Rashika, who's coming along, is a herbalist, so she's worth talking to. Hello. Just the next question. Oh, sorry.
This question.
So wait, what were you going to say?
Yeah,
I have stage 4-5 CKD. Could clovers help? I'm really sorry, I'm not sure what CKD is, so please could you just type it in and I'll be able to think.
And do you know of any herbs to reduce estrogen and prolactin? Ooh.
To reduce estrogen, I can't think of any to reduce estrogen off the top of my head, but things like yarrow, star anise and red clover increase estrogen, so you want to avoid those. But apologies, I don't know off the top of my head. The bit about endometriosis, yes, so endometriosis is caused by an excess of estrogen, so you want to avoid things like red clover and yarrow and star anise. Oh, chronic kidney disease. Chronic kidney disease is a difficult one. To my knowledge, there is no, red clovers is safe to take with chronic kidney disease, but people with chronic kidney disease tend to be on quite a few different pharmaceuticals, and so you actually want to avoid things that are too high in minerals, like sodium and potassium can really, the kidneys filter sodium and potassium, and if your kidneys aren't working properly, then it's not wise to put lots of sodium and potassium in your body. And it's also really important that you check your herb and drugs interactions. But yeah, to my knowledge, double check it, but to my knowledge, red clover is okay with chronic kidney disease.
Angus cactus balances estrogen.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah, Agnus castus. Yeah, people use it a lot for problems with their periods and stuff. So yeah.
Amazing.
Oh, Agnes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot here.
Any more questions? Feel free to leave them in the chat. I'm just checking back to see if we haven't missed any. Was there?
Oh,
we did the low blood pressure. Yes.
How long would you need to stop taking high blood pressure? I honestly, that's really on a case by case basis. It'd be really irresponsible for me to give you like a time, because depending on the blood pressure medicine as well, different ones stay in your body for a different amount of time. So you need to speak to a herbalist about that. And I'll give you some tips for getting affordable and accessible herbal medicine consultations. If you go to places like the College of Naturopathic Medicine or Botanical School of Herbs or Westminster University, what they'll have is people that are training as herbalists. They're not actually qualified yet, but they'll be supervised by teachers who have been qualified for years, and they will do practice consultations on you, and they'll be able to give you advice on this either for free or like £15 an hour. So definitely, when you're working with pharmaceuticals and herbal medicines, just be safe and use those resources.
We should probably write down those institutions, right, just in the chat.
Yeah, so after this, I'm going to send you those institutions. I'm also going to send you a link for you to be able to check your pharmaceutical and herbal drug interactions.
Nice.
Amazing. There were also some questions just sort of donated by people previous to the Zoom, and I just wonder if any of these, I guess nettle couldn't really turn into a skincare, but can any of these kind of become used as topical?
Nettle's great for skincare for flush. Red clover and nettle are really good for skincare from within because they clear the toxins from your body. So for some people, they find that really effective. And
not all the questions,
but for skincare, yeah. So skincare, I only use natural skincare. Basically, they say that if you wouldn't eat it, you shouldn't put it on your skin. And my skincare routine consists of rose water, which I mix with antibacterial essential oils, like, and ones which are good for skin. So geranium, tea tree oil. I use rose water and a bit of witch hazel. Clean my skin with that. Honestly, you can come out the shower and do that, and the cotton will still be grim. So I highly recommend that. And then also have fun with it. So I know that aloe vera gel works really well for me on my skin, but I also want it. It's amazing. Careful, a lot of them have a lot of chemicals in them, and they don't actually list them on the list on things. So careful where you buy. But experiment with oils, like oatseed oil is lovely. It makes your skin really soft. Frankincense essential oil is pro-collagen, so it's anti-aging as well. Carrot seed oil is a natural SPF, so you get that sun protection in there as well. Blackcurrant seed oil, all these different things. Just buy some aloe vera gel and experiment with different oils, and you've got this lovely clean cream for your face. It's great.
Yeah, without all the weird what you call them, the preservatives.
Yeah, all of that.
Because the oils are preservatives themselves. That should be enough.
Yeah.
You know, they like to add things and bulk them up.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And vinegar.
Yeah.
But not for the face. Or maybe if you fancy. I don't know. Depends how you want to smell.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for your lovely words. That's somebody said they've had great experiences at Westminster Uni Clinic, which is amazing. And Alithia, gorgeous name. Thank you for your support. That's really sweet.
Thank you so much. I'm just gonna actually go ahead now and drop links for Lazerou's work. I always call you Lazerou. I love your last name.
Oh, thank you.
So that if anybody does want to check and
I'll write my other website in there.
oh yeah, go for it.
So the Laz The Plant Scientist one is dropping this week. So it's not actually launched yet, but if you want to see more about my academic work, RebeccaLazerou.com. So
go follow Instagrams, do the things.
Laz The Plant Scientist.
Yes. Oh my gosh, the stories are so interesting every time. I always have a little read through, and they're so informative. So get your daily dose of plant knowledge. Like, honestly, it's
a lot on
treat.
CBD.
Yeah, I talk about how these plants work all the time and the things that I actually use, and I'm doing a hay fever prevention kit, so that's coming up soon. But anyways, I'll leave you lot to talk about other bits.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
so much. I hope everybody learned about everything that they would love to have known in that opportunity, and have the chance to ask the questions that I guess you don't always get to ask when you're just watching a video, you know? A little bit of interaction, a little bit of personal conversation goes a long way. So thank you for sharing and asking these questions, and joining us for the first half of today. We are going to take a little break, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then we'll be back with Mobile Apothecary, to which we shall watch the video that we've been making, co-creating as part of the Community Curators Alliance as well, been helping to bring this project to life, and it's super adorable and cute, and yeah, I just can't wait to show and share it with you guys.
The garden's amazing in Bethnal Green.
Indeed, we are not in that garden at the moment. We are in another garden, the community center, but it's gorgeous. I mean, the backdrop. We're in paradise. But the other garden, the forest garden, full of treasures. Yeah, we're gonna have a little explore with that in the video next. So yeah, if you would like, please return between the times of 2:45, maybe 2:50. But I think 2:45 we'll be back here, ready to do some more plant magic. So see you then.
Make your teas.
Make your teas. Go to the loo. Do the things. Okay. Oh, sorry. I don't know how long we've been unmuted. Yes, this will be recorded. This is recording. I caught it just as Lazerou was about to start talking about violets. So there may be a little bit missing from the edit that we put on our account, but it will be available, especially to everybody who's bought a ticket. You will have hopefully everlasting access once we've all got it uploaded, and opportunities to learn in person when as the Renegade Urban Project, aka Rug.
The Rug
Sorry,
Project.
she's meant to finish my sentences.
Oh, I'm terrible. Sorry.
Oh my god, I can't believe you didn't finish.
Sorry, I'm ashamed.
That's okay. We'll
Renegade
work on that.
Urban Growers. That's you guys.
Yeah.
That's,
And I must also make a point of in the video that we're about to watch, as I introduce Mobile Apothecary, sat with me now, there is a heavy urban soundscape, which is a bit different to a lot of other garden videos. I guess it's kind of serene. You might hear some bashment in the background or some sirens,
people
but
shouting. There were a lot of shouting.
A bit of shouting. We are in London.
This is East London.
This
guys.
is East London,
This
and
isn't
we're in the
Kent.
heart of it. So, but there's plants and beautiful treasures everywhere. So just kind of vibe with it, because this is us. This is a reflection of all of us. So here we go to our. I guess this is my left. This is Mobile Apothecary. We've got Michael. Michael Smith. Shamasa Khan. And Rashika Ahmed. I guess you're really gonna hear about them in the video, but if you guys do want to say a little hello, a little way. They're very shy. It's okay. You're gonna see these superstars shine in a second. And I love it. Sorry, I'm full of love. I love to give the love. I think we're ready. I'm gonna go ahead and replace the pin.
Hey guys.
Thank you so much for the work I'm putting into this as well. This is a beautiful collaboration. I guess we're ready to see what magic we've made. Let's do this.
No, I'm really excited. As I said, thank you everyone for coming today and coming through. Like, the space is really, really beautiful, and this project is really, really important as well. So it's like, from my heart, I really enjoyed filming it, and the guys at the garden really shared it. So I'm honored to show you this video. So give me 2 seconds while I share my screen.
Hello everyone, my name is Michael, and I helped establish the phytology project at the Bethnal Green Nature Reserve, which is where we are right now in Zone 2, just near the Bethnal Green Tube in the Museum of Childhood. It's about half an acre of wilderness from the Second World War, when a bomb exploded on the area we're standing in, and ever since there's been a kind of a slow process of reforestation going across the site. Majority of the site's woodland, but we've got a medicine garden in the far corner, which is where we invite people to come learn about medicinal plants, come into the streets of London and cities around the world, learn how to identify, mindfully forage, and make medicines that are good for your sort of day-to-day health. But more importantly, connect you with the landscape and sort of natural systems, particularly in the city, because it is a remarkable landscape, and the more we know about it, the more we get from it, and the more we wish to protect it. So these are my two collaborators, Shamasa Khan and Rashika Ahmed, and we collectively, with a group of amazing people, have been doing the Mobile Apothecary for the last 2 and a bit years.
Yeah, so the Mobile Apothecary brings together people, as he said, to learn and connect with the land, connect with each other, and in the process of learning and making herbal remedies, and that is then distributed freely via this lovely bike alongside of street kitchen partners. And I'm gonna talk about some of the plants in the meadow in this video, and yeah, about getting to know them and how to responsibly harvest them and just connect with them in a deeper way.
So I'm Rashika. I'm a medical herbalist that's part of the mobile apothecary since we started it, and yeah, I guess my role has been bringing the knowledge about how we make medicines with these plants that are growing in the garden here. So when we started it, we were doing these monthly workshops where people would come together here at Phytology, and we would make different remedies that were collective efforts that would then be brought out to be given out on the streets. And I'm going to be showing you today how to make a spring mineral vinegar with some of the fresh greens that are growing in the garden just now, and also violet oxymel.
Hello, so we're here at the Phytology Medicine Garden at Bethnal Green Nature Reserve, where the plants have been awakening from their winter slumber and just emanating their kind of green radiance. And yeah, I'm gonna just say a little bit about plants as multi-dimensional beings first. So plants, like ourselves, are multifaceted, and they have a physical aspect, like how they appear structurally, and then they have their physical, other physical aspects, like their biochemistry, different constituents that can be antiviral, anti-inflammatory, all kinds of things. But they have this other aspect that's more subtle or metaphysical, spiritual, people can consider in different ways. And I think the important thing to remember when we want to connect with plants and to forage them, or just to get to know them, that we're in relationship with them very intimately, just by virtue of our breath, really. For one thing, the oxygen that we breathe in is a gift from plants, and of course what we breathe out is used by them, is a gift to them. So when you want to forage or use plants in any way, it's really good, just like you would with a person, to have a relationship and approach them with respect. Another thing is that that subtle aspect that's beyond the physical, that they kind of can communicate with us, and we can communicate with them in different ways, and it varies. Some people might have, like, I think everyone's probably had an experience of suddenly a plant like drawing them in, or it could be repelling, or any array of different sensations and feelings and even emotions, and the communication can happen through images, through sounds, through all kinds of ways, and it's kind of non-linear. Sometimes can be very direct, like you're really directly involved with the plant. Sometimes it can happen over time. And the other thing I think is, what's beautiful about that is that here we're in a very kind of idyllic gift of a location in East London, but the plants everywhere, even the ones in like a less idyllic part, especially in urban contexts, the ones, you know, that you might consider in a polluted area, and the cracks in the sidewalk, or I don't know, surrounded by litter, that they maybe are even more appreciative of people connecting and kind of communicating in their own way with them, and can communicate back and give you messages back. So to not overlook those kinds of plant beings around you. So yeah, here we are with violets. Even with a good sized patch of anything, you only take a little bit from each plant, each bit. So with violet, some plants you can just pick, and you can kind of pick it. Yeah, violet's very sweet. It's a very sweet plant with the flowers are kind of tucked in, hiding away a little bit. So the flowers, you can see, are on a smaller, thinner stalk, so you can just pick that. You don't need to use the clippers. But the leaf is on a like more a little bit chunkier stalk. So thank you, Violet. So here we are with nettle, and this is one of my favorites. It's just amazing. It's actually like a natural multivitamin. It's just so giving and nurturing and nourishing, and it just has, unfortunately, this aspect about it that it stings, and people kind of get anxiety about it, and I'd like to dispel that. So it does have these teeny tiny hair-like things that have a particular acid that stings. But if you grab it from below, then the angle of it doesn't have that effect. So you see, it hasn't stung. But if I go about it like this, it is stinging me. However, the sting people have used traditionally, and I did meet someone even recently who does this and claimed it, and it worked for his back pain. People used to take some nettle and kind of slap it on themselves where they had pain, and what it does is, because it stimulates, it just triggers this stimulation response, and so when there's pain and blood is circulated around, it can alleviate pain often. Nettle is a spring green, and it is abundant in a lot of things, which will be talked about, I think, later. But for harvesting, we tend to just take the top few leaves. And again, this is like a very nice patch here. So you just go across and maybe wear gloves if you haven't harvested nettle before, until you get used to it. Even though nettle is very abundant and considered a weed, with any plant, as I said, we're in relationship with them, and you still want to leave enough behind for them to continue growing, and for other beings to use. Nettle is actually used by a lot of insects too, so both to leave them for the insects, and also be mindful when you harvest it that there might be some insects in there, so just shaking them out to let them go on their way. And nettle, if you keep harvesting or cutting them back a little bit, it can keep growing, and you can keep harvesting throughout the year. With nettle, later on in the year, when it starts growing bigger and getting to the point of flowering and then seeding, you don't want to harvest the nettle leaves to use at that point, because the plant has these teeny crystals inside that will irritate, can cause irritation internally. So, but if you keep harvesting and cutting down so that it doesn't go to flower, some of it, obviously you do want some of it to go to flower and to seed for various other beings to use, and so the plant continues in its course. But if you keep a little patch where you can keep it trimmed, then you can keep harvesting for a lot of the year. And it is, again, this really amazing natural multivitamin. So yeah, that's all. Okay, so now we're by a little patch of cleavers, which is this plant here. People here also call it sticky willy because it has these tiny hooks that like stick to us. So it has these little hooks, teeny tiny hooks that enable it to stick to things, and what it does, it clambers on top of other plants. They're a little bit floppy, and they do rely on that stickiness to get propped up by other things and each other.
Okay.
And they're filled with, they're quite watery. And I think the hooks are interesting because I kind of use it as it helps me, it's kind of a signifier of what it does. I kind of think of it as a little cleaning brush. So some of these plants that come up in the spring, in winter, we generally in the temperate climates, we rely on heavier root vegetables, which are quite grounding and very carby, and is what we need in the winter. We need an extra layer for warmth and support. And then in the springtime, these things come up and emerge, and they're exactly what we need to get things moving, and they're lighter compared to the winter foods we eat.
I'm just going to chop up the nettles here into smaller pieces. Obviously they have got the stings on, but you kind of get used to that. And put them in the jar. And the reason for chopping them up like this is that you then expose more of the surface area of the leaves, so that the vinegar will extract more of the mineral content from the nettles. So you're getting little bits of stings. You can see the stings if you, I don't know if you can get that close up, but tiny little hairs on the underside of the leaves, on the surface. And those tiny hairs contain histamine and formic acid, like red ants have. And that's what, when they touch your skin, that's what's causing the sting and the inflammation, things like itching or redness. So I'm going to chop up the rest of these. Okay, so that's the nettles. And then we're going to chop up some cleavers as well. Stickleback, or sticky willy, or goosegrass, and this as well is got a texture where it sticks to your clothes or to animals, and that's how the plant has developed, its way to get spread around. Rich in minerals, rich in vitamin C, which are going to be extracted in the vinegar. So we chop these up roughly also. So you want a jar that's glass, and ideally not with a metal lid, like this. Or if it is a jam jar, just put a layer of wax paper, greaseproof paper, in between the jar and the lid, to prevent that vinegar touching the metal. So that's all our herbs in the jar, and then what we're doing is taking apple cider vinegar. So if you can get vinegar that's raw, so not pasteurized, but still has the live culture in it, and it'll say it has the mother in it, that is beneficial, because it means that there's healthful bacteria, microbes coming into your digestive tract from the vinegar as well. But it's all right if you don't have the live one also, because the good thing about the vinegar, the reason we use it to make medicine in the springtime, is that it's weakly acidic. So nettles really rich in iron, for example. So simply what we do, we just pour your vinegar over the herbs, and you want to make sure that all of the plant material is below the surface of the liquid. So I'm just going to fill it right to the top and use the knife. You can use anything really, but I use this knife just to push all the plant material below the surface of the liquid. And that's it, that's a herbal infused vinegar. And then we'll put the lid on, and you would want to close it up. Make sure that you put a label. Okay, so this next one, I'm doing it with the lovely violets of the moment that Shamessa has picked some of from around the site. Violets are just gorgeous, they're purple, they taste sweet. These are sweet violets. You can eat them, really nice to eat. People put them on cakes and things. good to make a tea with as well. But what I'm going to show you here is what we call an oxymel, which is a really ancient preparation that originated in the Arab world in sort of medieval times, or probably even earlier, and it's the mixing of vinegar and honey, which are really ancient sacred substances. They're not obviously now, but they both have curative healing properties. So vinegar is a good anti-inflammatory and it stimulates your digestion. Honey is soothing in the throat, in the respiratory system. Oxymels were made with all kinds of different herbs for this kind of combination of sour and sweet tastes, and they have different healing actions in the body. So they were used originally for things like fevers, coughs, digestive upset. Pour the vinegar over the herbs to about 2/3 full, but you can vary it according to your taste. If you like sweet taste more, you can add more honey, but I do sort of, maybe a little bit more vinegar. I'd say I do 2/3 of the jar vinegar and then 1/3 honey. And again, like the infused vinegar, you leave it for a month to 6 weeks, say that. And then you would strain it out afterwards. So you get the liquid, the mixture of vinegar and honey, into which the medicinal compounds, the chemical compounds present in the violets have been extracted into the vinegar and the honey. And it will taste of that, but it's also going to taste amazing because it'll be sweet and sour and have a bit of violet flavour as well. I'm just going to have to eat this. Put a bit more vinegar, I think. Nice honey. Just fill that up to the top, and again, to emphasise that all of the plant material should be below the surface of the liquid. And again, you would put a label on that. It would say violets, vinegar, honey, and the date that we've done it. And then seal it up and leave it for a month, 4 to 6 weeks, before you strain it out, and then it's ready to use. Makes a really nice kind of, let's say, cocktail base as well. It gets called a shrub these days, a sort of sweet and sour drink that's flavoured with herbs. And so you could add fizzy water, say, but it will also be a really good sore throat medicine. Nice one for coughs, soothing for coughs, that kind of thing. And hopefully it's going to have a gorgeous purpley blue colour after a few weeks. Violet oxymel.
Thank you so much. That was great. I hope it was dreamy and interesting and informative. And you got to see the lovely, gorgeous phytology garden, Bethnal Green Nature Reserve. Sorry, I don't know if I've just glitched for a bit. Am I back? Are we all good? Okay, sweet. Just said the internet connection was unstable. Anyway, so how did you guys feel like sort of recording that, doing that process? I know it was a little bit nerve-wracking, but a few skills are sort of either demonstrated or practiced as well. So yeah, I'd just like to know your experience engaging in this project with us. Beautiful. Yay. And there's thank you guys for all the little comments as well. I do hope you guys try them. We'll have the tutorials with you as soon as possible. I'm going to ask some of the questions, so if you do have any questions, feel free to keep adding them to the chat, and we'll get round to them. So someone asked, so the stems don't have a sting? The stems of nettle? Yeah, that's a good question. I think you might have.
Wait, actually, you come in. You come in.
You guys come closer.
Sorry,
Maybe
guys.
take the 3 chairs.
I'm gonna. There's chairs. There's chairs. I can stand. Get over here.
Sit in the chairs.
Yeah.
Sit in the chair.
Wait, can we test the hearing, guys?
Yeah.
Can everyone hear?
I think I'll have to talk to.
Huh? All right. Excuse the kerfuffle,
One
guys.
second, just organise.
This is organic. This is in the moment.
Exactly, you know. Keep it real, okay?
We keep it real.
Okay, I think we're all ready now. You might not see my face, might see me pop in every now and again.
Well, I'm here.
There we go. Cool. So yes, the stems, do they ever sting?
Okay, so the stems, they do, the sting is in the hairs, and the hair is along this, like, yeah, it's all over the place. But the reason I think why, if you come up from below the plants and pick it that way, it's kind of like, it's the angle, it has to do with the angle of the hairs and how it touches you. So if you kind of go that way, it doesn't sting really. Whereas if you approach it from above or not from below, it will sting. I don't know, Rashika, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, hence the phrase grasp the nettle, isn't it?
I've never heard of it. Oh,
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's when you brush against it with your hand over it, that's when it really stings somehow.
Oh,
Whereas
really?
I always kind of pinch the top 2 or 4 leaves, just like that. with the
Yeah,
forefinger and
if
thumb.
you just like,
And it still does sting you, and then you have a big red bulbous finger and thumb by the end of the day.
But Shamasa has particular fingers. Very
Yeah, this guy's a
Indestructible.
badass. We were admiring
Just so you
the
know.
nettle handling.
yeah, like
And
this-
it's the
it is-
medicine, right?
Yeah, it is stinging, but sometimes it's actually quite nice. A certain amount of stung, like
You grow and
Apparently
get
it's good
used to
for
it.
hair growth, right? Like it stimulates hair growth. It gets the blood pumping.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, it's-
basically every time it stings you, it's bringing blood to the area, isn't it? Increasing circulation locally to that part. So that it would do it on the scalp as well.
Yeah, so if anyone needs that in their scalp, you could rub nettles on your scalp if you're feeling crazy.
know about
I want hairs. Maybe not. I am not trained, guys. Don't listen to me.
We just asked the question.
And the gardening element, knowing when to not pick nettles is useful because in the
Ooh.
height of summer, they become too strong, I guess. And what is the property, I guess, that makes?
I think it has some crystals inside at that point when it's about to flower, and then it's said to irritate your internal tissues. So
I think it's kind of almost more useful to think about the energy of the season rather than trying to remember the specific plants, isn't it? Like in the springtime, the leaves is what we're looking at because that's where the energy is of the plant and the minerals are coming out and it's starting to photosynthesize, the green leaves are. And that's when nettles are good to pick. And then once the energy's gone into the flower, it's not anymore the leaf that we want to pick. But yeah, uric acid crystals.
yeah,
Uric acid crystals.
Or other ones.
It goes into your liver and kidney in particular, and I guess the seed is also really good to harvest. So
seed is
letting
good,
it focus on the seed and then harvest the seed for medicinal edibles.
Or as I said, like you can have a patch that you keep trimming down, and then you can just keep harvesting the leaves. A little bit.
And let some flower, but not all
Yeah.
flower. Okay, nice.
Lovely. Okay, we've got a question. Do you wash the herb before preparation?
Good question.
good
I made that
question.
mistake. If it was a mistake.
Oh, spoiler alert.
I'm not washing the
No?
herbs. Yeah, I just popped it in. But anyway, you can answer that. So I can find out.
So, like,
I always get asked this question, and I always just say no, I don't, because I make sure that I pick herbs from a place that I am happy it's clean, that it's not really polluted. It's difficult in London, isn't it? Anyway,
Yeah.
find a place that not where loads of people are going, where loads of animals are. But recently, I've started to say yes, I wash them.
Say you wash.
But also,
So-
once again, like nettle,
Because-
if you always wash in cold water if you do not warm water, because otherwise you'll lose the histamine in the sting.
Yes, really good point. The hot water kills it. I mean, one thing is, it depends what you want to do with them. So if you're going to put them in vinegar, like we've done, or honey, or tincture, like alcohol, then it's fine. Here's our oxymel.
That's from the video, guys.
These are from the video. We'll talk about that in a sec. We'll get
But
around to
if you're going to dry them, then it's, if they're wet and then you have to dry them from wet, that's more difficult.
that.
So
Yeah.
Bear that in
Say
mind.
In London or in a place like that, it's probably good to wash
Yeah.
them, and you can always pat them dry
something if you need to for. I guess for topical stuff, we tend not to even wash them.
Like the comfrey when you
Yeah. For external stuff.
Okay.
That's good to know. So urban foraging, probably wash it just to be safe, but make sure it's cold water and you're just dabbing it, right?
There's a great collection of apothecary gardens now developing all over London where you can go and have good quality clean herbs, like the community apothecary in Walthamstow and phytology and Hackney Herbal, and the list goes on. So
that's the thing, it's a really strong argument for making spaces where we're growing good herbs, isn't it?
And kind of like community foraging spaces in the wild plants.
Yeah, more access to clean herbs that you can trust around and in the city. That's handy. What about like bugs? I just wondered, like, are there little critters and I'm submerging them in water? So I guess that's why you shake it. Shake off the bugs so they can return to the soil and you can go about your day without taking them from their families. Thank you. That's very good.
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to ask dosage and frequency of use. If you want to use this as something medicinal rather than just as part of a nice recipe, how often and how much should we take?
So the vinegars, yeah. So this one we kind of see it as a sort of food medicine, would you say? Yeah, it's not a kind of really potent. I mean, it's potent in the sense that it's got the minerals and things, but you can use it in a food way, like as a condiment. Add it as an ingredient salad dressing. But lots of people with vinegars will take it as a teaspoon in a bit of warm water first thing in the morning. But I'd say this is something you can have like several times a day at least. So adding it to food, you could, and it could be the base of a drink as well, like this one, the violet oxima, which is honey and vinegar. It's gorgeous. It's sweet and sour, so you can add other water to it.
Yeah, the cocktails does sound very interesting. Sweet, sour, vinegar based shrubs. Shrubs. Let's get some shrubs after this. Shrubs. We have a question as well. Someone was wondering what the soil is like, which I always think about as well, because I guess there's so many different types of soil, from like chalky. That's the only one I can draw to mind right now. I have to admit, I was going to start a list and I don't have a list, but they have the list. I just wanted to know if there's any contamination on the herbs from dogs or anything like that. Is that, sorry, urban city helicopter soundscape. It's passing by. So yeah, what the soil is like and contamination from like dogs, is that something to consider, be wary of?
Yeah, like that's something to consider, and that's why having spaces wherever in the community garden or someplace that you know, and knowing areas well, like where you live, finding or asking about places is good. So yeah, the dog thing. So we're at these places, like at Vitology and some of and the other places, we know that dogs aren't dogs aren't coming there, or if they are, they're not in the same way. I think dogs do come, but they're responsibly coming. And
very responsible dog.
And there are foxes, yeah, and they do mark things too, which is another reason to wash things for internal use. And with some plants, like you can get the higher, like outside of the of the range of animal weed.
But also just knowing the history of your soil, if there was contaminants historically, is really important.
Yeah.
We did soil tests when we first moved into the nature reserve and discovered a petroleum and a low level lead in certain areas. So we decided to, we looked at various options for remediation. And in the end, unfortunately, the most sort of sensible for the context was building a raised bed for growing the medicinal herbs, because we wanted to make sure that there was no chance of contamination. But there's a lot of conversations around what plants take up what contaminants, and it's an interesting thing to learn, not be afraid of, but kind of inform yourself. And and go to groups that know about this kind of stuff to learn more, because it's important. Knowledge is power.
Thank
Nice.
you.
Also, sorry,
No,
there
keep
is a
going.
really cheap soil testing company that we found recently, and it's £35 to do quite an extensive test on a patch of soil. So if you hit us up for information, we can share that. And it just means you're not speculating. You've got an informed position when you harvest or forage somewhere.
That
Thank
is
you. That's
useful.
really helpful.
These guys are a wealth of knowledge, guys. You definitely want to get in touch. What's the next question?
Here.
Okay, from Giselle. How would you take both preparations, and is there a good time of day to pick herbs?
Nice
Good question.
Nice about the time of day.
Mm.
Because traditionally you say that you go out in late morning after the dew has evaporated from the plants, but not later, too much later in the day when the sun has got hot and the essential oils, volatile oils will have evaporated more. Thinking about the kind of potency of the herbs. So yeah, sort of late morning, midday, usually.
Late morning, midday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good question. I've never even thought to consider.
And that's a very kind of generalized.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's flowers that bloom at night and that kind of thing.
And it's also what you can do, better to have it when you can than not at all. But yeah,
And not when it's raining.
yeah,
Yeah.
not when definitely, yeah.
Not when it's raining.
Except when mushrooms, you want to go for
Just after
early
it's
morning
rained,
and
yeah.
when it's raining,
Wow.
and they're all happy because they're like
They spring up and
you
they're
can really
like,
see them.
yeah.
They really
They
stand
burst out in the sun.
But why not pick herbs when it's raining?
I don't
Just usually, like if you want to dry them, for example.
Oh, okay.
you'll do that's in
know.
wet.
Sweat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
But also often when it's raining, a lot of that kind of aromatic quality is dampened. But when it's warm and dry, you're getting a bit more of that potency of the oil.
Okay.
So on wet days, go for the mushrooms, and on dry days, go for
Always
the
something
herbs.
to do.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's always a
exactly. And in winter, seasonal foraging, there's always a chance. So for our next question, we've got, can nettles be used as a veg like spinach in summer?
Hell yeah. Oh, in summer.
Yeah, in summer.
Yeah, but also
Question.
not.
You can do that if you've been keeping a patch trimmed and keeping it from going to flower, then you can do that. I do that.
Is it
Nice.
tasty?
In summer. It tastes, it's not gonna replace, like, it's not gonna be spinach because it's not spinach.
Yeah.
but yeah, you can use it in anything that you use spinach and other greens. Maybe depends on your taste preferences. You might want to mix it with other green things.
I've had it
Pesto.
in a pesto, yeah.
Pestos.
It's quite bitter in a pesto. So if you like bitter, earthy pesto, that's the way to go.
You do crisps, can you? No, crisps.
You can do,
Ooh.
if you dry and powder it, you can make nettle lattes.
No,
Whoa.
nettle latte.
Ooh.
That sounds healthy as
Gentrified
well.
herbalism.
Yeah. Keep it bougie too.
People make kimchi with it. You can ferment it.
You can
'Cause the
ferment
sting,
nettle.
if you dry it or ferment it, the sting isn't there, or cook it.
Okay.
It's only the fresh. Yeah.
Just on a culinary level, though, it's like spinach. You need to put lemon with it to activate the absorption of iron, whereas nettle doesn't need that secondary element, so it allows your body to absorb iron quite easily without the use of lemon. So
There's another Christopher Headley's iron tonic that's fresh nettles with dried unsalted apricots. You put bitter orange peel and you soak them all in red wine.
Oh, get behind that.
We like.
For about a month or 6 weeks and then strain it out.
Ooh, okay, we'll take a note of some of these recipes as well,
Yeah,
so you guys can
put this in like a pack. at the end
Yeah.
of this.
go and support you guys and give you everything you need to know.
There's going to be a nettle fest in May.
There's a
Nettle, there is everything.
nettle con.
Yeah. Everyone's spiky. That's cool. So have a look out for that. We're not hosting it, but it's a thing.
Nettle fest.
We've got another question. How do you powder them?
Heavy nettle bags.
Nettle bags.
Sorry, 1 second.
I guess you dry them and then they have to be thoroughly dry so that they're brittle and you can crumble them, you can put them in a grinder.
powderer machine.
Yeah.
Powder machine or a grinder.
We're thinking about powdering herbs for sort of foot issues with the mobile apothecary at the moment. So
And what would you do with the powder?
So just make, like, I think we were talking about calendula powders, weren't we, for dermatitis and fungal growth.
But you put it in, and we're saying put it in a shaker, like shake it.
Shake it on your foot, and then so that topical, just the powder on your foot, is that wow?
So it dries and it cleans and it.
And that wouldn't sting you.
No. Calendula. It keeps reminding me of this drag queen's name, Shangela. For some reason, just keep thinking. But that's how I'm going to remember the name, Calendula. So if anyone wants that as a, you know, your helpful way, I don't know how your brains work, but that's how mine does. Oh, someone suggested they made a coconut, cauliflower, and nettle curry.
Oh, that sounds good, Giselle.
Yeah.
That sounds,
And just to reiterate, heavy nettle bands, great idea.
Oh, yeah. That was Laz's. That was credit Lazerou.
Just as a side note, it's not related to what we've covered per se, but do you use calendula flowers? Just briefly, what do you use them for? It was part of the.
With the mobile, we've got 2 products that use calendula.
Yeah, sanitizer and we made a skin salve recently, didn't we? So calendula, like all the herbs, is many things. I ate some this morning. You can eat them. You can pick the flower head and put the petals in salad. And that orange brightness, it's really nourishing. There's things like flavonoids, good pigments for the tissues. But calendula is a healing herb in the sense it promotes healing of tissues. You take it internally, but externally as well. So infusing it into oil is the common way that we use it. And so for this salve, we infuse dried calendula flowers into almond oil.
Into almond oil, dried calendula flowers.
Ways of infusing oils, but calendula has been used a long time as a topical skin remedy for, you know, across the board, sort of skin inflammation, infection, things like bites and stings, but also like chronic things like eczema, psoriasis, as a symptomatic healer, but really good for easing inflammation, reducing inflammation on the skin, healing things like wounds and abrasions.
Topically. Yeah.
So with the oil, you could use it as an ingredient in a balm or a cream, or just use the oil itself. And you infuse it in the summer sun, don't you? Because calendula is this flower that grows pretty much every month of the year, and that's where its name comes from. Calendula.
That's how you remember it.
Yeah, calendula.
What's yours?
Shangela.
It also decreases inflammation in the lymph nodes, which is in part of the lymphatic system, which we was talking about earlier.
The body sewer.
Yeah, the body sewer. The lymph nodes is where the white blood cells take all the things they scavenge to. It's like the police station, to get rid of them.
Interesting.
So we love calendula.
I remember you mentioned maybe in some recipes that was involved the lymphatic system boosting in the morning. Lovely.
Just on the climate change front too, places like London becoming more and more kind of appropriate for growing calendula because it grows in the heat and the sun quite well. So we need to think about adapting our green spaces and what we grow.
More calendula, and it brings that joy of the summer sun, doesn't it?
So quintessential.
So any renegade plants, calendula flower, pop them around London. Let's decorate.
Yeah,
It has that. It drops its seeds. It's got this crazy little seed that looks like a sort of bug. And apparently, Jimena told me it's because they did it on purpose so that birds will see them and pick them up and pick it away.
Wait, what do you mean they did it on purpose?
As in they adapted to, they evolved to look like bugs so that plants want it.
I was like, who did that? Angela did that.
Have we got another question?
We don't have another question in the chat, but if you guys are thinking of anything, do pop it in. I'm gonna refer to some of the questions that people asked in the Zoom registration. So someone wanted to find out about, I guess we've covered quite a lot of it actually. Find out about how can we develop relationships and a sense of community by reconnecting with the earth. It's quite a deep question. Let's get into it.
I've got something to say on this.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
please.
Do
This
you
is
wanna come up?
Lazerou.
Yeah,
Yeah, go for it.
Hello. So
Maybe you could tell. Oh.
talking about community and the way that nature works. It's all right, guys. Thank you. Don't start want to be on camera. Thank you. So when we look at the woods and forests, and we sort of think of it as individual species, right, that just all happen to live in the same place. But what's more, also an accurate perspective is if we zoom out and we view the forest as one ecosystem, one entity that has many different things supporting each other. So the reason I say this is because everything in there communicates. It's something called the wood wide web. The roots of all the trees are covered in fungi, which makes the trees basically communicate with each other across species, and they are able to warn each other when a predator is coming, so that other trees can release certain chemicals to make sure that the insects and bugs and animals stay away from them. They also do it so that if a tree is cut down, other trees will feed nutrients to that stump in the hope that it will regrow. They have community between them. And the reason they do this is because they can't survive without each other. They need to maintain the temperature, humidity, living conditions, water levels. So they all need to support each other, no matter how big or small. And that is a beautiful way to live. You know, we live in such a extractive culture. We live in a competitive culture. We live in a pyramid culture where there's people at the top and then the rest underneath, and everyone's just trying to one up each other. Whereas if we sort of adopted the lifestyle of trees, that is community right there. That is community. And it's another thing that I really love about it as well, is that we glamorize youth so much in our lives, and we demonize age as if we're not all hopefully going there. And it's nonsense, because to be honest with you, like, you don't know what you're doing when you're young. I still don't know what I'm doing. You know, whereas aged trees have, you know, the memory chemically and a lot of ability to protect and carry on lineages. And I think that's also a beautiful way to view things as well. So yeah, that's for me the connection.
Yeah,
Yes, indeed. Mycelium network definitely plays a little role in that,
Mycelium,
especially.
yeah.
massive.
I
role.
was saying to actually the team earlier that when monocrop is planted, yeah, and we plow the land, plant a single crop, the trees lose their ability to talk to each other, and they become a lot weaker because their immune systems are basically weaker. So we then need pesticides to keep the pests off, and that has a whole destruction on the ecology. And so, for example, the HS2, where they destroyed the ancient woodlands to build the trains, and then they planted a few new trees to try and replace that as if you could, but they did that and they all died because they didn't take into account the whole ecology and the fact that you need the fungi in there as well and other species to help the whole system grow properly. So yeah, like, you know, when we think of conservation, we think, oh, animals, they're really important. And we think, oh, wait, hold on, no, plants are important. And now we're realizing, shit, fungi, we need to look at them as well. So there we go.
They kind of stitch everything together.
Yeah, it's the fungi, everything. It's called the wood wide web, how they communicate.
Wood wide web. And yes, I guess it's a really great addition there, Mary, just saying, yeah, we do have quite a extractive, domineering and transactional culture, but yes, nature does remember to teach us to remember presence. And yeah, I try to take a lot of that. Yeah, exactly. Amen to it. Take a lot of that into life and our practice as well, and just make sure that, yeah, stay connected, stay present, helps us, yeah, I guess just support each other and not get too lost in our heads and our mind and our, you know, insecurities that might arise that are inaccurate to our actual value and perception and ability. So I just want to give you guys a chance as well now to plug any sort of events or things that you've got coming up or opportunities in the spaces that you're.
Can I say something before?
Go for it.
So obviously I come from a scientific angle, and it's all active compounds and receptors and stuff like that. And the reason it's so important for taking these spiritual perspectives and grounded earthly perspectives is because herbalism is so much more than just pointing out that organ's wrong, I need to give it something to fix it. It's about sinking into a philosophy of nature. It's about getting in touch with the cycles of life and finding a more harmonious way to live. And when you are humble and grounded enough to thank a plant before you take it to help better yourself, that gives you a joy in life that you can't quite put into words. So I just wanted to do a little disclaimer, because our society is so fixated and obsessed with science, and it's important to decentralize it and take into the wider view of why connecting to nature is important. So yeah.
Beautiful, and a very, very important sentiment. I think the give and take relationship, it does need to be sort of acknowledged that we're in a symbiotic relationship with the earth. We're part of it. We can't just, take from our own stash and then have nothing left for anyone else or anything else. And you can kind of just see how that relationship won't have any longevity or won't be long lasting. So we wanted to bring this kind of narrative as Create Conscious as well to these conversations and to these experiences, so people aren't sort of going out in the world and doing things at, again, this very exploitative and kind of commercial level, but recognize that this is a relationship that we're upholding, that our ancestors had done and gone through experiences to decipher which plants were safe, which plants were edible, which ones were healing. And some unfortunately found out, the hard way for certain other plants. And to give thanks and appreciation to the people, all the animals and the plants that sacrificed to give us that kind of knowledge. We try and honor that in everything that we do, and remember, how do the actions of today make us good ancestors? I think that's a great question to ask yourself. So thank you, Michael, for putting that on the billboard.
So Adelaide Benneman is the artist.
Adelaide Benneman.
That's at the garden, guys. Come visit.
That's at the garden. That was in the video.
And it just feels really good doing this stuff, doesn't it? Like today, you guys have been mixing sheep shit and sand.
Yum.
It's just lovely material, isn't it? To be mixing
Yeah.
together, and you feel like then you're putting it into the earth and you're regenerating and refinishing the earth, and it just goes nicer than doing other like extractive kind of thing.
Not just the making, but the everything. It's such a multifaceted experience to go from planting, growing, and then making, and then giving. I love that sort of relationship with it. Let's hope it's cyclical, and we can continue doing this. Someone did ask, when is the garden open to visit?
That's a good question. We are COVID related. We're trying to have sort of welcome sessions every Saturday between 11 and 1 for 5 people from next weekend until the restrictions ease a little bit more. Then hopefully we can open it out. But if you email us at info@nomad.org.uk, we can send you information about how to get involved.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much, everybody. We look forward to hearing about your growing. So share with us your projects and your pictures and your medicine making, and let us know that you're on top of life, because you be making plants and making magic at the same time. So